Hey, good morning. Happy Thursday, one of my favorite days of the week. And welcome to One Cool Thing. This is PC Mag's daily show where we show you one cool thing that we've been testing in the lab. And today we have a really great cool thing for you, something that I'm sure many people will be interested in.
Wait, is it this one?
You can't tell which one it is?
Or this one? Or this one?
All right, we have four phones on the table.
Ah! Black Slab World!
One is the cool thing.
Yes.
And it is this phone. It is the Samsung Galaxy S9 Plus. So we're going to be talking about the S9 Plus today. If you are watching on Facebook Live right now and you have any questions, leave a comment. We'll answer them for you. If you're watching later on YouTube, please like and subscribe. You can still comment there too. And let's get down to the phone. So, Sasha, this is the S9 Plus. You've been using it for about a week since Mobile World Congress.
About a week, yeah.
And we just gave it 4.5 stars and our Editor's Choice Award.
Yes.
So, how did you come to those conclusions? I mean, why is this worthy of our latest Editor's Choice?
Because this is the best smartphone hardware available on every axis, basically. It is right now the best processor on an Android phone. It is the best physical cameras, though we'll get to why I say physical. It's definitely the best radios. It has terrific audio. Every aspect of its hardware performance is the best you can get. The screen is brighter than on the S8, and the S8 already had the best screen. The speakers are 6 decibels louder than the S8, and the S8 already had decent speakers. It has every possible LTE network technology that any US carrier is implementing right now.
Right.
So you go along all of those axes, and you find that you can't do better than the S9 Plus.
So just one thing I want to highlight, though. It kind of sounds like you're going down a list, checking off boxes, and you're saying, okay, this is why it is the best phone. Now, I know you. Probably some viewers know you, and you can be very enthusiastic about things.
Yeah.
And, I mean, to me, you're not nearly as enthusiastic as you are about some other things. Why is that?
And that's because this phone does not do anything that is radically new. Okay, this is basically, it's like the transition from the iPhone 7 to the iPhone 8, where, I had to acknowledge that the iPhone 8 was better,
right?
But there was no aspect, there was no like radically awesome, different, new change that would compel people to go out and say, oh my God, this is the new generation, this is the future of smartphones. And we're kind of having that here too.
Right.
Everything's a little better, and they have some funny software features, which I want to show in a minute, which to some extent do and to some extent don't work. But in the big picture, this is the S8 or the Note 8 with everything turned up by 20%.
Right. So I think what we should do is let's go back to those features that you were checking off your box, and let's go through them one by one.
I want to start with the cameras, because this is the biggest physical change from the standard size S8 and the S9 for that matter.
Right.
The S9 Plus has dual cameras. The top one has a physical aperture which can change from f2.4 to f1.5 to let in more light.
Right.
The bottom one is a 2x camera. And then you also notice that the fingerprint sensor has changed position from, here's my S8, from the side to the bottom. But what's funny is that I don't actually think that makes it any more usable. You're just now sliding your finger up from the bottom as opposed to over from the side. You can still accidentally touch the camera lens. But so if we go into the camera, now I don't want the front-facing camera. Front-facing 8-megapixel camera is exactly the same as on the S8. But as you can see, so here I'm showing Alex through the camera, and I'm going to go into auto so that we can jump from 1x to 2x, and of course you get that really nice optical 2x, but that's on the Note 8, that's on the iPhone 10, and then you can also manually switch that aperture from 2.4 to 1.5. And you can't really see it in this light, but the 1.5 does make it brighter at a little bit cost of sharpness.
Right.
And now talking about sharpness, that actually is the most controversial thing about this camera. And that is the thing if you want to say the thing I most struggled with in this review, that is it. Because the software JPEG encoder on this phone heavily sharpens photos.
Right, and so we actually had our camera expert, Jim Fisher, put this phone through the same tests that he uses for regular digital cameras.
Yes.
And I mean, you could see you'll see photos if you go to our review, and you could see the over sharpening. But if you want to talk about
right, and so you find that if you just take the raw images out of this camera, it is the best smartphone camera hardware available. Okay, the f1.5 to f2.4 thing works. It captures a lot of light and low light, great low light performance. In general, really good lens performance. But then if you're in auto mode and you're just saving JPEGs, the JPEGs are automatically hyper sharpened to a level which really disturbed Jim.
Right.
And it didn't bother me as much, but I'm not as sensitive to these things as Jim is, and Jim really didn't like that software JPEG sharpening.
Well, I will say too, when I see the photo on its own, I look at it and I think this looks like a good photo. But he pointed it out, he puts it next to other photos, and you can see that it definitely is over sharpened.
Right, and when he was taking pictures in RAW mode, which you can do relatively easily on this phone, and then altering them to his taste, they would come out better than on other phones. But it's that software setting of Samsung's, that's a lot of letter S's, that caused Jim to take a little bit of a step back. But the good thing is that can easily be fixed in firmware.
And also, if you are the type of person who's going to notice that the photos are just slightly over sharpened, you're also probably the person who would take raw images and alter them yourself.
Yeah. So now let's talk about some of these other features. Okay, the screen. Okay, the screen is superficially, it looks almost the same as I've got an S8 here. And Just Dolcourt from CNET is sending me DMs, and because we all know each other. But so the screens look very similar.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
and there's nothing wrong with that. This is the best screen on the market. But the screen is a little bit brighter in its high brightness mode, which is great. And it has this awesome setting that I need to show you. Let's see, where's the screen settings? Okay. I think it's in here.
Well,
yeah, there it is. There it is.
There you go.
Okay, so this setting down here lets you change the white point of the screen. And now this is important because there's been a lot of criticism of how yellow or blue various manufacturers tune their screens. And this was one of the biggest criticisms of the Google Pixel 2 XL.
Right.
Well, you know what? You like it blue, you can have all the blue you want. You like it yellow, you can have it a lot more yellow or a little more red. So there's just a lot of flexibility in here to turn this into the exact screen you want, which is really terrific.
We have a question.
Okay. Is it 4G LTE double SIM or one SIM 4G LTE and the other one 2G?
This is a single SIM phone. In the U.S., our carriers generally do not permit the sale of dual SIM phones. So dual SIM phones are actually 0.3% of our market. So as the U.S. model of this phone, this is a single SIM phone. However, the SIM card slot does have a micro SD card in there as well, and it can handle up to 400 gig micro SD cards, which is great. I mean, two things that Samsung hasn't changed, which are terrific, is they have the removable storage and they have the standard headphone jack.
Right. And
people love their headphones. You know, I haven't really heard a very compelling reason to actually get rid of the standard headphone jack. So it's great to have this here.
Right. Okay. So we've talked about the camera. We've talked about the screen.
Yeah.
What are some of the other big features?
Okay. Let me see if I have a way to pump up the audio here. Because the audio, since this has dual speakers now, one on the bottom, one in the earpiece, the audio is considerably louder than on the S8. Here, I'll turn on some. Here, we've got some 80s new wave or an ad. Let's get this ad. There we go. And then, and it's just nice round audio. Not quite as tinny, doesn't have quite as much distortion.
Right.
I mean, it's not great. It's still a phone speaker. It's still a phone speaker.
It's a loud phone speaker.
But it's a loud phone speaker. Exactly.
And then that carries over if you're making speakerphone calls.
Bingo, bingo. These phones have always had great call quality. The speakerphone is even better than it was last year because of these dual speakers.
Right.
That makes the speakerphone better. Looks like we have another question out there.
Does it have band 71?
Yes. So one of the other great things about this phone is that this phone does LTE like nothing else in the US market right now. It has T-Mobile's band 71. It has 4x4 MIMO, which dramatically improves speeds and to some extent coverage on both Sprint's band 41 and AT&T's band 30, which we haven't seen before. It does every aspect of carrier. It has LAA on all 3 carriers that support LAA. It has every aspect of carrier aggregation that the US allows.
Right.
It is, we haven't put this through the full signal and speed tests that we do with some with some high-end phones, because those take a week. But I have faith that this is going to outpace pretty much everything. It's going to outpace everything else when it comes to LTE.
And if you are looking for a full listing of the bands, they're in the review. I mean,
Yes.
there's a lot of them.
There's a lot of LTE support in here. The Wi-Fi, by the way, also great. The Wi-Fi support was outpacing. The quality of the Wi-Fi was outpacing the S8. We're not entirely sure why, but it was great.
Right. And so while we're talking about what's inside the phone, let's get to the processor.
Yes. So the processor is a Qualcomm Snapdragon 845. This is our first Snapdragon 845 phone that we've seen. From a pure CPU perspective, not that big a bump. You know, from a pure CPU perspective, the Antutu scores went up. Geekbench, it's still behind the iPhone. PC Mark seemed to be on par with the 835, which is a little odd. Graphics benchmarks, though, a good 20% bump, and that's nice. Things that deal with a lot of graphics, gaming, video software, you'll see better performance here. And like, I never had a problem with the S8's performance, so. Yeah, so the S9 is going to be very good.
Right, I mean, that's the thing. If you still have an S8 a year later now, it's still working pretty fine.
Yeah, yeah.
We have another question.
If someone owns an S7 or S7 Edge, would you recommend the upgrade to this?
Yes, absolutely, no question. Okay, so the deal is I would not recommend upgrading from the S8. There's a lot of little changes, but do they add up to $900 worth of change? From the S6 or the S7, definitely. I mean, this form factor alone is so much nicer than the S6, S7 form factor, which was nice for the time. But the tall, narrow form factor gets you so much screen, still in a relatively one-handable size. The screen is absolutely gorgeous. And the network support alone, the network support is a jump ahead of the S7 on pretty much every US carrier. So you're going to find your ability to connect gets dramatically better.
Now, you mentioned price. This phone, we reviewed the unlocked model. It's $840.
Right.
There are also carrier models available.
Yes. So one thing that Samsung is doing really well this year is they're making these unlocked models available relatively early. And the S9 is $720. The S9 Plus is $840. And the carriers, for some reason, are charging more, and I don't understand why.
Right.
Because didn't carriers used to charge less? Wasn't that the whole point?
That was the thing. I miss those days.
Yeah, exactly. So for some
sorry.
reason, the carriers are charging more, and the only reason I've found so far to get the carrier model of the phones is if you want AT&T or Verizon Wi-Fi calling, which is the one feature which does not appear to be supported on the unlocked model.
But if you're a T-Mobile or Sprint, definitely get unlocked.
If you're T-Mobile or Sprint, everything's on board here.
All right, let's take another question.
Are either of you upgrading to the S9?
I have an S8 and I'm pretty satisfied with it. I might wait with my S8. It really depends on. So I have particular specific needs involving obscure network testing. So I might have to step up to the S9 because of that band support and because of the ability to see where band 71 is. But from a purely personal perspective, not a I have to do things for work because I'm the cell phone guy perspective, I would stick with my S8.
So I am an iPhone user. But if I were not, So from an S6 or anything earlier than that, I would absolutely jump up. Now, I know you said from the S7, but I'm slightly reluctant because of something that we talked about at the beginning of the show, which is the innovation factor. And I do wonder, I mean, of course, you can always wonder what next year's phone will bring and then never buy a new phone. But we were talking about this yesterday, and I really do wonder if next year's phones will be a huge jump over what we're seeing now.
Here's the thing, though. I think they will. I think that 2019 is going to be a killer year for smartphones in a way that the end of 2017 and 2018 kind of isn't. I think that we're going to see the folding phones finally, the Samsung Galaxy X Folder.
Right.
We're going to see the first 5G phones. We're going to see some really intense innovation in 2019 that maybe we're not seeing here.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, if one of your thoughts is, should I wait for 2019? Is something crazy going to happen? Yeah, I do think something crazy is going to happen in 2019.
But if you have an S7 and it's starting to get slow,
Yep,
and
yep.
you're thinking about a new phone, yes, then definitely get this phone. Let's take another question.
Do you think that the adjustable aperture on the camera is a game changer or not?
No, it's not a game changer. It makes low light photography a little better. It's one of those things, one of those features. It's like, I mean, I've been thinking of saying that, you know, this is like the S8, but every feature is 20% better. You know, it's one of those features. It's like the S8, it's 20% better. Can I show the disturbing AR emoji now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So, Samsung put a bunch of new camera modes in here. Some of them work better than others. The one where it counts the calories on food works really well. I'm not sure I want to know how many calories are in everything I'm eating, but some people do. The one that translates languages works not very well. And then there's this. Hi. Actually, wait. I can superimpose my AR emoji face over you. Here we go. Let me AR emoji you. And then, oh no, okay. It would only do it if. Oh no, so that was super slow.
It worked earlier when I was behind you.
No, it's because I hit the wrong button.
Okay.
See, there we go.
So your face is on mine now?
Yes.
Okay.
So what you get is you get these custom motion capture faces, which are a little disturbing because they're a little too smooth and they have lag in them. Look, now you're my friend Colleen. Or actually a relatively bad version of my friend Colleen. Here, now you're back to me. So the AR emoji, in terms of in terms of the custom animated people, a little disturbing. If you go to cartoon characters, it's a little better because you don't expect cartoon characters to move as smoothly and in certain ways that humans do.
Right.
They have a bunch of Snapchat style masks. That one's not bad. Now you're Mario.
Yeah, it's strange for me not to know what.
Not to know how I'm representing you on this screen. They're going to have branded Disney characters. That'll be interesting from the cartoon perspective. But so far, where I've found the AR emoji to be the most interesting is that when you create an AR emoji of yourself, it creates all these GIFs, and the GIFs are kind of funny and not awful.
Also because you're not talking, they're smoother.
Exactly. So let me show you some of the GIFs. I mean, let me show you some of the GIFs. You've seen the GIFs already.
I've seen them. They're also in our review.
Yes. So see, it's things like this. And so because the still representation is not so bad and the GIFs are pre-programmed, they are not as they are not as awful as the videos. Now another camera feature in here, super slow-mo. Super slow-mo is 960 frames per second. It only records at 720p. It's kind of cool, you know. I popped some balloons. They were slow.
Right.
Yeah.
We didn't use it on the snow yesterday.
Didn't use on the snow. Used on balloons.
Let's take another question.
Do you think they're going to release it bundled with a new Gear VR anytime soon?
This fits into the existing Gear VRs. So I do not believe they need a new Gear VR at this time. I am kind of curious what's happening with the Gear VR right now. I haven't heard a lot about new apps for that.
Yeah.
I feel like, I am a little worried that Samsung is starting to abandon that platform just because they tried hard for a few years and it didn't take off. But it will fit into your existing Gear VR.
Any other questions?
If someone had a Note 8, what do you think? Would you also not recommend an upgrade?
No, do not upgrade from the Note 8 to this phone. Okay. With the Note 8, you have the dual cameras, which is one of the big advantages of this phone. On T-Mobile with the Note 8, you have Band 71, which is something that you're really looking for. What would you gain going from the Note 8 to here? You gain the slightly faster processor. You gain the manual aperture. You gain faster LTE speeds on Sprint and AT&T because of certain kinds of 4x4 MIMO. But it's incremental enough that, once more, it doesn't go to the spend $800 level. That's the thing. Like, you can say there's kind of, when we're making these recommendations, there's a question of, should I upgrade if money did not exist, right? Like, is this better than X? Yes, it is better than the S8 or the Note 8. But then you have the question of, if I just spent $800 4 months ago, should I spend another $800 now? And I think that's what changes the calculus.
And I think that question is almost always easy to answer, if it was indeed 4 months ago.
Yeah, it's generally pretty easy to answer, and that's why, I mean, to be honest, these phones are designed to replace the phone from 2 years ago, for this reason.
Right. Any other questions?
The person who asked about Band 71 earlier just wants to clarify, does the unlocked version also support it?
Yes! Read in the review. I'm so happy about this. The unlocked version appears to have all of the band support that the carrier-locked versions would have. So if you're on T-Mobile or Sprint, getting the unlocked version is absolutely the right way to go.
Anything else?
How would you measure the S9 against the Xperia XZ2?
The Xperia XZ2 isn't out yet, so I would measure the Xperia XZ2 as not out yet.
I mean, they have a number of the same specs.
Yeah, they have a lot of the same specs. They have the Snapdragon 845. The S9 has a much higher resolution screen. The XZ2 is at 1080p. I think the XZ2 is going to have slightly better audio. I suspect the S9's cameras are still better. The XZ2 has that 19 megapixel camera, but Samsung does a really good 12 megapixel camera,
right?
Even with the sharpening. So I don't think the XZ2 is going to be able to depose the S9's position.
All right, let's take another question. I see him rolling in.
How many times have you accidentally used Bixby?
Because I'm an S8 user, I have, that would be a lie. Like, on a daily basis. Like, Bixby accidentally pops up all the time. It's that darn Bixby home screen. Yeah.
And actually, that's something we didn't talk about much today. And
yes.
That's just because you don't intentionally use Bixby.
Bixby is still there! Bixby, the service nobody wants. It's there! Here, I'll show you on here. So yeah, we do have our dedicated Bixby button. And Bixby pops up and tries to take some voice commands, and we have our Bixby home screen, which shows you stuff you probably aren't paying attention to, and just in general, like, it's not that it's bad, it's that
it's extraneous.
It's extraneous, exactly. Bixby does not solve any problems people were looking to solve, other than Samsung's problem of not having its own operating system.
Right.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right, so this is the Samsung Galaxy S9 Edge.
Galaxy S9 Plus.
S9 Plus.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
S9
At least
Plus.
isn't the ThinQ.
It is $840 unlocked. We gave it 4.5 stars and an Editor's Choice Award, and our review is live on PC Mag right now. Thanks for tuning in today, and we'll be back again tomorrow with another cool thing.